Hi, I'm Meg. Welcome to Change Becomes You, the space where we explore the true power behind lasting change, your unconscious mind, the supercomputer within you, the part of you that creates healing, abundance, safety, clarity, and deeply meaningful relationships, often before your conscious mind even catches up. When I learned how to work with my unconscious mind instead of against it, everything changed. I moved from contract work as an organizer into building a multi-six-figure business from the ground up, guided not by force or hustle, but by alignment, intuition, and inner authority. Here's what I want you to know. You already have everything you need inside you. Nothing is missing. You don't need to become someone else. You need to understand how you're designed to operate. This podcast is your invitation to remember that. Let's begin. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here with me today. This one's going to feel really intimate, and I want it to feel that way. I want it to feel like just you and I sitting, talking, facing each other. Wherever you are right now, whether you're listening and driving through traffic, whether you're folding laundry, whether you're walking in the early morning listening to the podcast episode before anyone else wakes up, whether you're sitting in a waiting room somewhere, or maybe you're lying awake at 2 a.m. because sleep has been hard to find lately. I want you to know that I'm genuinely glad that you are here. And I want you to know something else before we go any further, that you don't have to perform here. You don't have to have it together. You don't have to be okay. This space, this time is just for you. And I want you to take a breath if you need one and just exhale and let yourself just fully arrive here. Let your nervous system arrive here. Because today I want to talk about a woman that I know very well, and maybe you will recognize her. She woke up this morning already behind. Before her feet hit the floor, her mind was already running to the list, the appointments, the emails, the people counting on her, the things she forgot to do yesterday, the thing she has to do today. She got up, she showed up, she got things done. She smiled at the right moments. She answered when someone asked if she was okay with, "I'm fine." She held space for someone else's hard day, even when she was quietly drowning in her own. She is the woman people describe as capable, as reliable, as resilient. She's the woman who gets things done, the woman everyone leans on, the woman who figures it out. Maybe she's also the woman building something, building a business, a new chapter, a life that finally looks the way she always imagined that it could. Showing up on calls, putting herself out there, working harder than anyone around her realizes. And maybe when the door is closed and no one is watching, she sits down and feels something she can barely name. Exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix, loneliness that exists even in a full life. A quiet ache of wondering, is this it? Is this what I've worked so hard for? Why does success still feel so heavy? Why do I still feel so far from free? And if any part of you heard yourself just now, you are exactly who this episode is for. And I want to say something to you directly. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You're not failing. You're not too sensitive, too much, or somehow doing life wrong. You are a woman who has been strong for a very long time, and there is a cost to that. One that very few people are talking about honestly. And today we're going to talk about it. I want to tell you my story because this is how I know. And I've told it in previous episodes, maybe not to this degree. But I'm going to tell it again here today because I think it matters that you know who is speaking to you and why this work is not just my profession, why I get up every day. In 2001, I was living a life that I loved. And I was working in the film industry. I had friends, I had laughter, I had creativity, I had momentum. Life felt full and alive and full of possibility. And I was the kind of woman who kept going, right? Always moving, always building, always energetic, always doing. And I traveled to Europe in the fall of that year. And when I came home, I didn't quite feel right. I felt like I had the flu and it just wouldn't let go. And then it kept feeling like that. This went on for months, right? Days turned into weeks. I really thought I'll just shake it off. I was the one that always did that, right? I was strong. I always shook things off. And then one night I went out to dinner with a friend and I got severe food poisoning from shellfish. And I genuinely thought I might die. What followed was one of the most frightening experiences of my life. I lost an entire month of memory. Gone. I couldn't reconstruct it no matter how hard I tried. And then came vertigo. Extreme, relentless vertigo. I couldn't walk normally. I couldn't think normally. I couldn't work. And the woman who had been so capable, so reliable, so always moving, suddenly couldn't move at all. Couldn't find her point in gravity. And here's what no one talks about when illness arrives like that. The physical symptoms are terrifying enough, but what comes after them can be even harder because life doesn't pause when you go down. The world keeps moving. We see this in grief and we see this in illness, and slowly, quietly, people move with it, right? So the invitations stopped coming. People started feeling really awkward, like, I don't know what to say, you're still not feeling well. The calls became less frequent because they were awkward. The friends who had filled my life, the ones I had laughed with and worked alongside of and built memories with, moved on. Not out of any cruelty, just out of life. And I found myself isolated in a way that I had never experienced before. I felt alone in a way that wasn't really just physical. I felt forgotten in a way that really made me wonder, did I even matter? Does my life matter? Will I ever feel like myself again because I lost her? And I sat with those questions for such a long time. And in that sitting, something started slowly and painfully to shift. And it was kind of beautiful too. I decided that if I was going to find my way back, I was going to understand every layer of what had happened, right? Not just the physical, but the emotional, the psychological, the subconscious, the spiritual. So I went back to school. And when I was capable, I studied and I studied and I studied. And to this day, I still continue to study. I still continue to learn. It is voracious, my appetite, in order to help people understand what's happening to them. First, I became a clinical iridologist and I graduated at the top of my class and at the only government accredited school in all of Canada. I studied world religions, all of them, and I found something really remarkable. Beneath the differences in language and ritual and culture, there is a thread that runs through every single one of them. Because we are truly so much more alike than we are different. And that thread, that common human longing for healing, for meaning, for connection became the foundation for everything that I do. I studied neuro-linguistic programming. I still study advanced neuro-linguistic psychology. I became a clinical hypnotherapist, again at the only government and state-approved school at postgraduate level. I walked through the fire of illness, of job loss, of friend loss, of feeling like my life didn't matter, of feeling like I didn't matter. And I came out the other side. Different. There was no way you can go through that and not be changed. So I was changed with a practice that is unlike anything I could find when I was the one who needed help. Because when I was going through it, there were pieces There were practitioners with parts of the puzzle, but there was no one who could walk with me all the way. No one who understood the body and the mind and the subconscious and the soul and the business of rebuilding a life all at once. So I built that. I built it for the woman that I used to be. And I built it for you. Because most women are not suffering because they're weak. They're suffering because they've been strong for too long. And there's a difference, a really important difference, because eventually the body begins asking for a different way. And if we don't listen, it just speaks louder. Sometimes through anxiety, sometimes through insomnia, sometimes through exhaustion that doesn't lift no matter how much you sleep. Sometimes through symptoms that don't have a name yet. Sometimes through a diagnosis that stops everything and changes the landscape of your life completely. And I understand that personally. And I understand it through thousands of women I've had the honor of sitting with and working with. One of my clients came to me after receiving a health diagnosis that completely shook her sense of identity. She sat across from me and she said, I don't even know who I am anymore. And as we talked, what became clear was that she wasn't just managing symptoms. She was living in constant anticipation of what might happen next. Every sensation in her body had become a threat. Every ache, every flutter, every moment of fatigue sent her spiraling into research and worry and dread. She had become trapped in a state of constant monitoring, scanning, checking, bracing. She's trying to stay one step ahead of danger at all times. Now, if you've ever done this, and so many women have, please hear me. There's nothing wrong with you. Your subconscious mind is trying to protect you. Your nervous system is doing exactly what it was designed to do, create certainty in an uncertain situation. But unfortunately, it creates the opposite. The more we scan for danger, the more danger we find. The more we monitor, the more frightening every sensation becomes. And eventually, without even realizing it, we stop living. We're surviving. And there's a tremendous difference between the two. And as we work together gently and at the level of the subconscious, she began reconnecting with herself beyond the diagnosis. Not ignoring it, not denying it, but refusing to allow it to become the whole story of who she was. And something beautiful happened. Her world began expanding again. She started making plans for the future, something she'd stopped doing entirely. She started laughing again, enjoying meals, conversations, just ordinary Tuesday afternoons, trusting her body again. And this is the important part. It wasn't because her circumstances changed overnight. We look for the evidence. That's what we're trained and conditioned to believe. Show me the evidence and then I'll trust it. That's not what happened. It was because her relationship with herself changed. And that is so often where healing begins. Not when everything becomes perfect, but when we stop abandoning ourselves in the midst of imperfection. And I'm thinking of another client right now. Another woman came to me because every doctor, every practitioner, every well-meaning friend kept telling her the same thing: reduce your stress. You're too stressed. And she was frustrated, right? Rightfully so, because she wasn't choosing stress. She desperately wanted to relax. She had tried everything. She had tried meditation. She had tried yoga. She had tried breath work. She had tried supplements and nutrition therapy. She had tried talk therapy. She had listened to podcasts. She'd read books, everything. And yet every single time she sat down to rest, her mind got louder. The moment she stopped moving, her brain flooded with racing thoughts. Things she had forgotten. Things she needed to do. Conversations she'd replayed 100 times in her head. Health concerns, future scenarios she was trying to prepare for and prevent, right? So rest felt impossible. And that impossibility made her feel like something was wrong with her, deeply wrong with her. So you can see how when someone says, just reduce your stress, they mean well, but it's not helpful. And what we started to discover together was her nervous system had learned years earlier in childhood that vigilance equals safety. Being alert felt safe. Being prepared felt safe. Being hyper aware felt safe. Relaxation did not feel safe. Now I want you to think about that. The very thing she wanted most, the thing her body desperately needed, felt dangerous to her subconscious mind. So every time she tried to rest, her nervous system activated. Not because it was broken, because it was doing exactly what it had been programmed to do. It was protecting her. So one thing we began creating immediately was genuine safety at a subconscious level. Not talking about it, not thinking positive thoughts, but actually rewiring the felt sense of safety in her nervous system. And then things started shifting. Her sleep started improving. As soon as her sleep started improving, her anxiety started decreasing. The racing thoughts started quieting. And she felt more like herself, more present again. Not because she forced it, because her nervous system finally got the message that it no longer needed to be on guard. This is one of the most important things I share with the women that I work with. You don't have an anxiety problem. Most of the time you have a safety problem. A subconscious mind that still believes it must remain on guard to survive. And no amount of positive thinking, no number of affirmations, no yoga class can override a survival pattern. The pattern must feel safe enough to release. That's the work. And I want to talk about something right now that we don't discuss nearly enough as women. Because the women I work with aren't only navigating illness or anxiety. Many of them are also building something, right? They're building a brand, they're building a business, they're building a new chapter of life that they can feel approaching but can't quite reach. They have the vision, they have the skill, they have the drive that has defined them their entire lives. And yet something keeps pulling them back. One client came to me ready, or so she thought, to launch her business. She had clarity on her offer. She had the expertise. She had done the work. She was good at what she did. And yet every time she went to raise her rates, she couldn't. She'd pull back. Every time she sat down to write the post, the article, send the email, make the ask, something stopped her. She would go into this loop in her mind. She would discount herself before anyone else had the chance to. She would add more. She would overgive, give more, justify more, and receive less. And on the surface, it looked like a confidence problem, right? Or a strategy problem, or a fear of visibility. But when we went deeper, we found something entirely different. A subconscious belief, old, inherited, running quietly in the background, that receiving was dangerous, that being seen was risky, that wanting more than she already had was unsafe, and that if she charged her worth, she might lose her safety. She might be criticized from those around her. She might have to go into self-defense to justify why her value was tied to the charge. I'm curious if any part of that lands with you. Because I hear this over and over in different voices, different stories, different industries. But the pattern is the same. A woman with enormous capacity to give who has never truly learned how to receive. So with this particular client, as we worked together and began rewiring those patterns at a subconscious level, not with strategy, but with genuine inner safety, something again shifted. And then the real test was she raised her rates. She sent the email. She launched. And people said yes. And I'll never forget the text that she sent me afterwards and her absolute elation. Not because I gave her a script, not because I handed her a business plan, because she finally felt safe enough to be seen, safe enough to ask, safe enough to receive what she had already earned in spades. And this is the piece I'm really most passionate about because it lives at the intersection of everything I do. True wealth is not just about money. It's about a woman who believes she deserves the life she is building, who can rest without guilt, who can receive money, recognition, love, support, joy without immediately giving it all away, who can lead with her full presence without burning herself to the ground in the process. Right? That woman, she changes everything around her. She leads herself in a way that her nervous system has the capacity to hold. And so her health improves, her relationships deepen, her income grows, her joy returns. But not because she worked harder, because she finally stopped working against herself. And I really want you to hear that. And I want to take a minute here to speak to those of you who are curious about what it actually looks like to work at this level. Because I know that for many women, the word hypnotherapy brings up images of like swinging pocket watches and people clucking like a chicken on a stage, or a man who says he's the number one in the world and promises in a short, 1 or 2 sessions, you're fixed. And he's the one who did it. He gets the credit. I healed so-and-so. Not that. Let me offer you something different here. The approach that I use is a conversation. It's a very particular kind of conversation with the deeper part of you that has been quietly running the show. Your conscious mind is the part that reads books and makes lists and tries very hard to think positive thoughts. But it's your subconscious mind. That's the part that drives the car while you're thinking about something else. The part that knows every word to a song you haven't heard in 20 years. The part that learned very early how to keep you safe and has been doing that job ever since. Even when the strategies it developed no longer serve you and are sabotaging you. It still loves you. It's still protecting you. So this work doesn't force anything. It doesn't override. It doesn't require you to relive painful memories or perform or push through. It creates safety. There is emotional processing. You have to be able to process your emotions. But it invites the subconscious to update old instructions, to release what was protective once, but is now a limitation, to open to new possibilities that feel genuinely safe, not just intellectually understood, but felt in the body, in the nervous system, in the bones. Women often tell me after our sessions that they feel lighter, lightheaded, kind of wet noodly, like something's happening, that things they've been carrying for years don't feel so heavy anymore. I hear that a lot. I feel good. I feel peaceful. I feel kind of relaxed. And they say it in such a way like, I feel kind of relaxed. But when I hear that, the freedom I hear in that could make me weep. They said that they said no to something that they would normally say yes to, and they didn't apologize for saying no. That they slept through the night. That they started to allow themselves peaceful sleep again. That they charged their full price. This is what this work is, right? It's not magic. It can feel like it, but it isn't. It's your own subconscious mind finally feeling safe enough to let you live. So I want to paint you a picture here of what becomes possible, not of a perfect life, but of a free one. I want you to imagine waking up on a Tuesday morning, an ordinary Tuesday. And your first feeling isn't dread. It isn't the weight of everything you have to do. It isn't the low hum of anxiety that you've almost forgotten isn't normal. Your first feeling is something quieter. Something that takes a moment to name because it's been so long since you've felt it regularly. Peace. You move through your morning not because you're forcing yourself forward, but because something in you actually wants to be here. Wants to engage with the day. Trusts that you're okay right now in this moment, even if everything isn't perfect. Your body starts to feel like yours again, and you inhabit it rather than manage it. You sit down to work on your business and you don't immediately talk yourself out of the thing you are going to do. You write the post, you send the email, you put the offer out into the world, and you let it land without immediately dismantling it in your mind. Someone says yes, and instead of immediately wondering when they'll change their mind or whether you're worth what they're paying, you receive it. You let it in. You say no to something that doesn't feel right, and you don't spend 3 days recovering from the guilt. You rest, actually rest, without the mental monologue of everything you should be doing instead. You laugh more than you have in years. Not the performed laugh, the social laugh, but the kind that comes from somewhere real. And you look at your life, the actual life that you're living, not the one you'll get someday, and you feel something you may have forgotten was available to you. Gratitude, joy, aliveness. This is not a fantasy. This is what I witness in the women I work with. Not immediately, not without the journey, but with the right support, working at the right level. It becomes possible. More possible than you might currently even believe. And so I really want to say this clearly before we close. The women I work with are not broken. You are not broken. You are not failing at healing. You are not failing at success. You are not somehow incapable of peace or joy or wealth or ease. Most of the time, your subconscious mind is operating from a very old set of instructions that protected you. Instructions that were written for a version of you who needed them. Instructions that have protected you, your life, or your whole life. But you're not that version of you anymore. You're outgrowing it. There's a whole new identity forming in that future that you want. And the subconscious becomes willing to update those instructions when it feels safe. Your nervous system expands its capacity to receive when it feels safe. Not forced, not shamed, not white-knuckled into change. Safe. And I've seen women who have lived with panic attacks for decades find genuine peace. I used to have panic attacks when I had that vertigo. I've seen women who hadn't slept through the night in years begin resting deeply. I had a client come to me. She hadn't slept more than 3 to 4 hours a night in decades. Now she sleeps between 7 and 8 hours every night in her bed, no longer in another part of the house monitoring. I've seen women leave what no longer serves them, relationships, patterns, stories, and step into versions of themselves that they had stopped believing were even possible. Not because someone handed them confidence, because they stopped abandoning themselves. So if you've been listening today and finding yourself somewhere in these stories, whether you're navigating illness or a diagnosis, whether anxiety has been your quiet companion for longer than you'd like to admit, Whether you're a woman building something and wondering why it still feels so hard, whether you just feel tired in a way you can't quite explain. Please know this. There's hope. No matter how long you've struggled, no matter how many things you've already tried, no matter how many times you've told yourself you should be further along by now, there's hope. Because your body's not your enemy. Please hear that. Your subconscious is not your enemy. They have been trying to protect you all along, and they're ready when the conditions are right to support you in a completely different way. Maybe today is the day you begin listening differently. Maybe today is the day you stop asking, what's wrong with me? And start asking, what is my body trying to tell me? What is my life asking me to become? Those questions can change everything. For me, when I was ill, it was, what if this is happening for me, not to me? What would that mean? And if this episode has landed for you, if you heard yourself somewhere in what I shared today, I would genuinely, genuinely love to hear from you. Tell me if you feel moved to a little of where you are, what you're carrying, what you're longing for, whether you're healing from something that has taken more from you than you expected, or you're a woman with a vision who's ready to stop playing small and start receiving the life you have been working toward. There may be a way for us to work together that meets you exactly where you are. And if you're not quite ready and you want a place to begin on your own, that's exactly why I created the Foundations Library on the website. It's a gentle, safe starting place to begin rebuilding your relationship with yourself. One breath, one insight, one experience at a time. The links are in the show notes. And it's waiting for you whenever you're ready. Because healing doesn't begin when you finally become stronger. Healing begins when you finally feel safe enough to stop fighting yourself. And abundance, true abundance, begins the moment you believe in your bones that you deserve it. It was never a question of you deserving it. That all of what you want is possible for you. I know because I found them. After losing everything I thought defined me, I found them. And I've spent every year since helping women find them too. So I want to leave you with something before you return to your day, if it's safe to do so wherever you are right now. If you're not driving, then I'd love to invite you to take one slow, deep breath. And if it feels comfortable for you, place one hand on your heart. Just feel the warmth of your own hand. The gentle rise and fall of your chest. The simple, faithful rhythm of a body that has carried you through everything life has brought so far. And receive this. You are enough. Right now, as you are, with everything still unfinished and unresolved, you are enough. You don't have to earn rest. You don't have to justify receiving. You don't have to keep proving your worth to the world or yourself. You are allowed to be supported. You are allowed to be seen. You are allowed to let someone walk with you all the way. Take that with you today. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. You have carried enough for long enough. And perhaps now it's finally, beautifully time to let yourself be held. With so much love.